So with that in mind, we also want to encourage you to ask questions during the meeting. Usually the first part of the meeting is, introductory to RMIA, and hello to you. And then we have a presenter on a topic that we feel is relevant for inventors, and we also appreciate your input. So if there's something that we haven't had a speaker on for a while, or you really want to hear about, we will bring in an expert in that area. So feel free to give us some feedback on what you'd like to hear. The second half of the meeting, in between we take a break, and then the second half of the meeting is kind of an open roundtable discussion. We'll finish up Q&A if the speaker wants to stick around, because they have lots of valuable input. And a lot of times the topic will go back to what was in the presentation, but it's also open to any other question you might have. Let's see what else. As far as intellectual property, if you want to discuss what you're working on, do not give us specifics. You can talk in generalities, but the minute you start talking about how something actually functions, you could be jeopardizing your chance for patentability. So you want to be careful with that. Only disclose under a non-disclosure agreement, and that's with someone who has a need to know, and that's the key, is the need to know. Because just discussing that with anybody is not okay. Not from a patent perspective. And you want to protect your patent rights. Any questions about that? Obviously you can address them to Roger, as far as the patenting issues. Okay. With that, let's go around the room and just quickly introduce yourselves and why you're here, why you're involved with the RMIA.
Well, my name's Tony Dobai. I'm an aspiring entrepreneur. I'm involved in several different projects, namely STEM education, the Internet of Things, and enterprise software. So I'm here just being a sponge.
Mike Littlehorn. I'm definitely here as a sponge, so learn everything I can. Just have several different projects I'm working on.
My name is Greg, and I invent and built an electric guitar with built-in stereo amplifier and speakers, and you can apply also iPhone or iPad, and you can use like one-man orchestra. You can compose, because you can use iPhone like GarageBand is application. So you can use many options. And I'm coming here because I'm kind of looking for somebody like Shark Tank, somebody who can help me with this idea to do next steps, and support financially, and all kind of support I need.
My name is Amanda Hunziker. I'm currently a project manager for a software company, but looking to transition to do more product development work. So just trying to understand go-to-market strategies, that kind of thing. Start with a very simple, small, easy product, and learn the ropes, and hopefully get out there, make some things happen.
My name's Todd. I'm a new inventor. It's my first month. The other day was my first day as an inventor. I've got a new kind of wind generator that doesn't kill birds.
Audubon's a study like that.
Filed my provisional this week for 414. And I'm doing my Kickstarter next week. So I'm interested in starting a company soon, and so this is perfect. I'm also very interested in the angel next meeting, so this is very perfect for me. And I just moved to this area less than a quarter-mile away
Oh my.
of the only place within hundreds of miles, so I'm in the right place.
Perfect location for you.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. were at the library this week?
I was there as well, yeah.
Okay,
I did,
terrific.
research.
Yeah.
And then I went to the last month.
Good
And
opportunity.
I worked with the last speaker to do the video for my Kickstarter.
All right. All right. It's good, getting a good start.
Yes, thank you for being here.
You're welcome. Good. And with that, Gary is gonna tell us all about this, you know, what about the money end of this, and how do you take it from, you know, where you're at now and building on it, and, you know, what does it really take to build that successful company? The things you may not wanna hear, but you need to hear. So Gary?
Thank you. I'm gonna start by telling you what I do, because it's relevant to everything I heard around the table today. I work with inventors, product entrepreneurs, and we take them through a transition from having an idea, having a product, raising capital, building a management team. And I'm going to share with you tonight a lot of the issues that I have to deal with from my perspective. And I'm half entrepreneur and I'm half corporate. And the reason that's important is the entrepreneur side is the invention side, it's the promotion side. When you want to make money, you got to transcend to the commercial side. And I've dealt with all types of inventors, and I'll share some stories with you tonight on some of the strangest ones I've had. And the attributes that I'm bringing to the table are all frontline things that I deal with almost every day. My firm is located in the tech center. We do 2 projects a year that we get involved in. We are not consultants and we're not advisors. We actually become part of the company. And the reason we do that is if you don't have that passion, that drive to believe enough in the inventor and in the invention, you won't cross the finish line. We deal in probabilities. I'm going to share with you tonight things that we look at that you as inventors or product managers have to address. And the more things that you address, okay, the higher your probability of crossing the finish line. And so from that, start with that's a quick rundown on what I've been involved in over the last 20 or 30 years. I've done over 100 financings with small cap companies, anywhere from 500,000 up to 20, 25 million in transactions. My background is out of Wall Street. I had my own investment banking firm in Denver here for 20 some years. I sold that in 2007 and developed this model where we now get involved with companies that have a technology, and our criteria, it has to be very rampable, very scalable, and we come in and we assist them in getting a customer, because in today's world, you can't get financing unless you got a customer. And he doesn't have to be one that's right there at the table, but he has to be in the pipeline. And the financing sources have to see that your product is commercial. What you think may be sellable to the general public, okay, unless you've done your work, your homework, and your surveys, and talked to people, and someone's willing to buy it, you never know. And so what you want to make sure that you do is that you go through, and some of the things we're going to talk about tonight are so rudimentary. And the way that I present my subject matter, if you got a question, just stop me, because why it's fresh in your mind, we'll go through it. There's only 7, 8 of us in the room here, but everything that I'm going to talk to you today, we've done software, we've done military technologies, we've done cyberware, we have done medical technologies. The basic principles of business do not change to the invention. So the basic things we're going to talk about today, okay, are the same things whether you're in the wind business or whether you're in the guitar business. The goal here is, once again, to increase your probability. Sometimes in the financing world, you can have the best product in the world, you can do everything right, and if the market's not there for financing, you're going to suck some air for a while. And there's no way around it, okay? But there are strategies you can employ, okay, that can help you get over that hump of the market not looking at your space or category. Right now, and in fact, some of you may have seen the project several months ago, the robotic project. Jim Gunderson and his wife Louise invented an artificial intelligent robot for security purposes. That's our current client. And the process we normally go through is our first 30 days, we assess the technology and the inventor. We put together a action plan that we literally detail out everything that we have to do to make us a real company. And most of the time, the hardest part is working with the inventor, because most inventors do not think like business people. In fact, what I normally tell my clients is I won't become a world-class scientist if they don't try to become a world-class businessman. So in essence, we think differently, we look at things differently. But what you have to recognize is you can't cross that finish line unless you adopt or hire or have relationships with that business skill that comes to the table. I'm going to jump ahead a little bit. I have what I call the Bill Gates theory that I look at. A lot of inventors look at Bill Gates. So Bill Gates, by the way, was a great inventor, okay? But he was a hell of a lot better businessman. And he's 1 in a million, okay? And by the way, Bill Gates, by just about everyone's acclamation, does not build the best software, okay? But the marketing and the sales and the operations is what drives his profit, okay? So you can have a mediocre product or technology, and if you address the commercial effective side of management issues, okay, you can make a lot of money. On the other hand, you can have a great technology, the best technology, and if you don't put the pieces together on the commercial side, you will die poor. And it's just the way it is. And in my business, if we don't think we can work with a particular inventor, or we walk away. Because I've been down that path where if they won't modify their behavior, I can't give them success. If they modify the behavior, they listen to us, okay? We have not had a project yet. When I say cross the finish line, people say, give me, it's a home run. You never know whether you have a home run. What you're going for is a base hit or a home run, okay? And try to stay away from the outs. We look at a company or a technology, we look at, there's 4 parts to a company that we break down. There's your technology that you bring to the table. Then you have operational and admin management. You have sales and marketing management. You have finance management and capital. And believe it or not, the least important of the 4 is your product, your technology. And if I'm wrong, there'd only be one of everything. There'd only be one shirt manufacturer, okay? But somebody convinced me that this shirt was a hell of a deal with sales and marketing. Now, what we do is if you have the best technology, okay, we build those other 3 parts for you. And that's what makes your probability of success go up dramatically. And whether you like it or not, that's the real world. And I have looked at and seen some spectacular technologies where the inventor could not accept that theory. And literally, we've walked away, and to my knowledge, most of those technologies are still sitting in the inventor's head up here. I don't know, does anybody know the old analogy with Betamax and VHS? Okay, that's my bottom line, representing what I just said, is Betamax had the better technology, VHS had the better management team, who won the battle. Okay.
I don't remember.
That's
So
it.
long
But
ago.
trust me, okay. And these are just, just talking about the operational admin man. These things don't all come together at one time. There's no magic formula, okay? But you as an inventor, you have to take one of 2 tacks. Either you want to be an inventor and you want to stay over here in the invention side and you have to go out and hire professional management, or you have to try to grow into that professional management role. And some inventors can do it. Very rare. Bill Gates being one, okay? Same thing with sales and marketing. And one of the things that we deal with every day is that when people come into our office and they have a great technology and it's exactly what the market needs, 9 times out of 10 they haven't been to the market yet to do survey work, questionnaires, whatever, to really see if that's what the customer needs. And I can guarantee you the perceptions of somebody with a creative inventor mind is totally different than the consumer or the business that you think you're going to be selling to. And you have to know those attributes in order to increase your probability of success, because you're building a product that they may not want.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Is there a science to that market research, or I don't know if you've heard of like Amazon, the mechanical Turks, the
Mhm.
mechanical hits.
Mm.
So I can pay, $27 and get 1,000 answers, which I did.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not a psychology or sociology major, so I'm not sure if I'm asking the right questions, and I'm getting a lot of good information. But is that worth it, or do you outsource
It may be, but
that,
it's only
or-
part of it, Amanda, okay? And I don't know the
Uh-huh.
product, but you try to design it, and you can't afford it. I mean, I know each inventor walks in my doors is poor as hell because they put all their money in their invention. So you can't afford lots of times to go out and do the glorious R&D project to find out all the research. But there are ways today with the internet that you can really get flavor and literally create your own surveys. And if you did nothing but create your own survey, and if you can, have somebody else do the survey contacting because you're prejudiced, okay? And you have a perception of your product, and it will come across in your question in your survey. So if you can have somebody that's totally neutral, doesn't care what the answer is, you get much better feedback and results in that regard. And literally create your own survey. And believe it or not, in the financing world, every little step that you take like that helps the credibility that you have a commercial product. And then of course the ultimate is having a client, okay? Because once you sell a product, then you've proven commerciality. And now your biggest issue is how do I scale it? How do I ramp it? How do I increase marketing and sale? Every inventor and technology and entrepreneur that I've ever run into says, all I need is money. I'm here to tell you today that money, without the three elements of the business side, you will blow through it. You will be no further along than you probably were when you got started. And you can have a lot less money than you think you need if you have that core management or that business approach to finding out who your market is, what they want, what their product is, all those attributes versus just thinking money. Money is not your major problem. There's a lot of great technology companies that get a lot of money, and then 6 months, a year later, you hear where they go, they've gone bankrupt.
They had a pool table.
Yeah, they had a pool table. What we look for, because most technologies can't afford to come out of the box with a management team from GE, okay? We've developed from our own experiences and our own scar tissue. We have a formula that we generally go out. It's very hard for you at the level you're at to attract industry management to help you on your project, just because you're a startup. What we do is, with our client base, we go out and we raise the first $500 to $1 million. And very frankly, that we get them a customer with, and we get activity started that you now can attract a higher end CEO, if that's the route you're gonna take, to your industry, because now you got money in the bank, you got a customer, and now his only issue is how do I scale this thing? And so from scaling, that's a standard business practice that any CEO knows how to do if he's from the industry. One of the things we really try to do is, lots of times you can get a management guy or management person who has the ability in general management. But if you can bring somebody in from the industry, you are months and months ahead because he knows the game rules. And every industry has its own little game rules. And the sooner you learn those, the faster you'll catch on as to how you have to do and sell product. My first project when I started my company in 2007, I went out and I hired, we got the company financed, we went out and we hired a CEO, a CMO, a CTO. I mean, we built this management team. And in their first year, this new management team spent the entire year trying to show each other how smart they were. And that's human nature. That was a very valuable lesson that I learned. It was a very costly lesson, but one that I learned. So what we do now is when, and I'll talk about the robotic company because I know some of you have seen the product. When we got involved, I became interim CEO. We packaged the company now. We're right in the middle right now of a $500,000 financing. And we designed a CEO profile. And in that profile, that's 3 to 5 pages of the skill set that we want from this CEO. When I get this money raised, I will now be able to attract a higher end CEO because I got money in the bank and I got customers. The key element we learned is you hire a CEO and you say to him, build out your team, or say to him or her, build out your team. In that regard, generally somebody in that industry will know somebody he can go to as an Amanda or whatever and say, I know your skill set, I need you on the team, here's the deal. If you can hit the ground running with an effective team that's worked together, either in the past or worked in the same industry, your probability goes up dramatically of crossing the finish line of success. Without it, you'll spend the first 6 to 12 months fighting the political battles between all the senior guys or senior people at the management team. These things here are very simple. Our process at First Capital is, we call it APEX. We assess, we plan, and we execute. And in the business that you're in, the word focus cannot be used enough. You have to design the game plan that you're going to attack, and then there's no tomorrow. You work on that thing. Our staff, we get involved. We sign out every little task. Who's going to be the primary on it? Who's the secondary? When it has to be completed by. And then we have a meeting every morning to review everybody's progress in the last 24 hours. And we just keep the pressure, because pressure with good people creates good results. If it's not good people, it'll crack. And you should know that sooner versus later. One of the things I've had some very good inventions we've worked with. The one that I tell the story on, one of the things you want to do is, there's no perfect product. Every product has issues. And when you're dealing in my world of finance and operations and marketing, you have to know all the problems. And most inventors do not want to tell you the problem. Their technology is perfect. Nothing is perfect. Okay, I've never seen a perfect technology yet. It is much better to convey what your issues are, because you package around them. With a good, effective management team, whatever those issues are, you package around them, okay? And you convey your dirty laundry, okay? Anytime you're in a corporation and you're trying to move forward, and particularly if you're looking for financing, financing has a lot of components. One of them is trust, okay? If they don't think they can trust you as they go through the due diligence process of looking at you, okay, forget it, okay? One of the biggest sins and one of the easiest sins is to don't tell them everything. What we do is, we have strengths and weaknesses. And the weaknesses, we say, here's the issue, here's how we plan to resolve it. Now, I've told them what my dirty laundry is and how I'm going to clean it. They have respect for you because you have a process in place, and then they trust you. And that trust element in financing, I mean, they're going to come down. In every financing that we do, every inventor, and if he or she didn't think this way, they wouldn't be inventors. They got the best and the biggest product in the world, and somebody's got to come knocking on the door and give them $1 billion check. No way in hell. Okay? If you can't demonstrate the commerciality of it with a client, and that you know how to run a business, or you've incorporated and brought people in to run your business, okay, people won't run. Prime example, we have a company on the East Coast. They have a software product that ties together databases without any APIs or anything. It is very, very effective. And tying databases together. They went to the Pentagon. Pentagon did a 2-year study on their software and said, holy hell, this is great software. And then came procurement. Procurement looked at him and said, what the hell, you got 5 people in your company? And literally, the president of the company, great guy, he was the primary inventor on the software, and they just looked at him and said, you can't pass procurement. Okay. So we got him introduced into Cisco as a partner. So now that issue was resolved by having a big 800-pound gorilla partner who was going to be here forever, because big companies that you dream about doing business with, okay, they're not going to do business with you unless you either are just giving them the technology under a licensing basis. But if you think you're going to build a company and they're going to do business with you, okay, their biggest issue is, are you going to be here next year? Are you a 1-man, 2-man, 3-man, 4-person show? All those things, doesn't matter how good the product is. I mean, this was a multi-million-dollar software, and it took them 2 years to vet this software. They got an A+ to get to procurement. Procurement just, in 30 days, they were down in the dumps. So what was the problem? The problem was they didn't have a management team. They have great coders and great code. So now we got them introduced, and we're back on the front line again, and we got probably a 50-50 chance that we'll get a transaction put together. But to this day, that company will not go out and hire the right management team. And you know, from our perspective, we have them on what we call, they're just on life support. And it's an unbelievable software product. But no big company is going to do a business with them. And they don't, Cisco basically has told them, we'll do business, but we have to know more about that software than you know. Because we can't put our customer base in jeopardy, okay, by going out, doing an install, and then you guys not being able to support it.
Why are they reluctant to hire a management team?
Well, because they don't want to give up control. And you know, and I see that as an issue. I mean, I'm half entrepreneur and I'm half corporate, so I understand that. But unless you get over that, it won't work.
100% of zero is still zero.
Yeah, absolutely. That's my morning breakfast every morning. So once again,
Gary,
yes,
can I
sir.
ask you, so the CEO of the software company, I mean, if they had connections within that industry and say Cisco, I mean, that would be a big plus.
Yes, and see what we proposed to them. We did a transaction with them, and it wasn't our normal transaction where we become part of management, and then we actually replace ourselves with industry people, because they didn't want to give up equity. Okay, so we said, okay, we'll help you in getting a customer, and we take a very high percentage of the licensing fee. So we went through this whole thing in Washington. I mean, I can't tell you. I have $125,000 of overhead into this project because the software is so dynamic and did such a great thing. And then when it comes down to the actual signing, the inventor, and by the way, they can't make payroll, every other month. They have, odds and end customers, but it's a classical example. Unless you can modify your behavior and get to the commercial side, you got a great invention, and I hope you like it because you're probably going to die poor with it. I mean, that's just the way the world is. Right, wrong, or indifferent, that's the way it is.
Lonnie had some licensing people like that.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. A couple experiences I've had in reference to technologies. The greatest one I had is I got a call from a friend of mine out in California who's a noted lawyer out there. He knows what we do, so we had a potential client for us. So we went out in the Mojave Desert, and we found a scientist out in the Mojave Desert that had invented a new direct energy beam. And like, a microwave, for instance, is a directed energy beam. Laser is a directed energy beam. He had come up with a beam that had attributes way beyond what was available in the world today. And if I had a unit sitting here, which is about the size of a microwave oven, and I pointed this way, nothing electronic would work for 200 to 300 feet. And if you want to, I could put a sheet of lead right there, okay? And it still would go through the lead, and it would go through the water. And we made the rounds with the Boeings, the Lockheeds, and everybody. So, I mean, this is a big time technology, 22 patents. We got scientists from all over the world. Penn State studied it for a couple of years in their material science. So we get close to closing. We get a interest from a Dallas financing group, and I won't tell you who it is, but he's about this tall and he ran for president one time. And he runs an organization that is second to none. And so when we were in the final stages, he said, I'm going to run background checks on all you guys on your side, the inventor, me, and everybody. I said, fine. So about 2 weeks later, I get a call from the staff in Dallas, and they asked me if I could come down to Dallas. I said, sure. So when we get involved with somebody, we do the normal background checks that anybody would do just to make sure that we're not dealing with somebody who's a criminal or whatever it may be. So this guy comes out and he says, how well do you know your inventor? I said, well, we ran background checks on him, and he's pretty out there, outside the box. And they said, well, listen, by the way, the inventor was still on the board of directors, and he was still the chief technical officer of the company. So this guy says to me, he says, well, let me share with you that your inventor is also the owner of 14 pornographic sites.
Ooh.
So a $22 million financing
Ooh.
just went out the door. Now we're back in top, and so we got the inventor to resign. We had to get him out of the company. By the way, when I deal with inventors, you have two roles as with an inventor or an entrepreneur. You're an employee of the company, and you're a major shareholder. If one doesn't work, that doesn't mean the other goes away. Okay, so you have value on both sides of the fence. But sometimes, as you mature and things change in life, okay, you're not made for the commercial side. Some are, some are not. Okay, so in that regard, you're still a major shareholder. And we protect our entrepreneurs and our inventors because they're the idea, the creative people. But in reality, is sometimes you cannot put a square peg in a round hole. So in that particular case, by him not telling me that, I kept him on the board as a courtesy. I kept him as CTO, okay? If he would have told me that, not my value in life, but that's his decision, but he would have been still a major shareholder. But him not telling me that, cost us a $22 million financing, and we were probably within 30 days of closing. So once again, if you got dirty laundry, package it up, clean it up, box it, and you don't even have to cure it all. You just have to say, here's my problem, here's what I'm gonna do about it. So, those are my formal comments. I am open to questions on what we do and how we handle situations and how we look at technologies or whatever. So, open forum. Todd, you got a question?
Who owns the company?
What company? The technology company?
The ones that you partner with?
Normally the inventors, the process is, if you have an invention, your windmill, you will assign that to a company, okay? For instance, and you'll be the only shareholder right now, okay? As you go out and start raising financing and bringing people in, your 100% will keep going down, down, and down, but you're building a better, stronger team. So, and to give you your example, if you broke your technology, conveyed your technology, assigned it in to a company, that company now is the owner, okay? And you own 100% of the stock because you conveyed that in, okay? Now, as you go out and try to find capital, okay, you're gonna have to sell off a piece of the company to get them to put money into your company.
So it has to always be stock.
Yeah, well, put it this way. In the risk posture that you're all in, okay, you may not think that it's a very risky transaction, but I would guesstimate from my years of experience that probably less than 5 out of 1,000 technologies ever get from the idea to the commercial side. So it's high risk. Yes, it's gonna be. If you're making money, if your technology is already making money, then frankly you have to give away less of the company to get financing, but you still have to, build a company. The technology, believe it or not, I'll say it 100 times, is the least important part of building a high probability of success. Okay, if you address the management side, okay, and then you have the great technology, your chances of a home run go up dramatically. Okay, but if you just sit there and focus on how great this technology and how many zillions of dollars it would save or make or whatever, okay, won't happen.
Is it possible to do it without stock at all?
Yes. Okay, you can sell off revenue interest in the technology. You can license it out, do sub-licenses. For instance, if you have a technology, for instance, I'll go back to the software example. There are a number of different industries that can utilize the software. You can license off one of those industries. Let's say you're licensing off to the military or government technology. Now, all these things that I'm talking about get harder and harder to do if you're a basic startup. Because once again, you haven't proven it. But you can license, you can sub-license, you sell off revenue interest. And I'll talk a little bit about financing mechanisms, because the financing mechanism for your space right now is changing dramatically right now. Last year, the government passed the Jobs Act, which had a number of new regulations that make it easier for people to raise capital. Right now, only about half the rules have passed where you can go on a Kickstarter or Angel List, crowdfunders, whatever, and as long as you're talking to accredited investors, you can sell stock, bonds, or a security on there to raise money. All kind of hoops you jump through. Same issues though. The same people that are looking at your investment are the same people I'm talking to when I go out knocking on doors to raise money for our clients. Okay? They're angel investors, they're VCs, they're institutional players. Your best deal for a technology is a strategic partner. And that's somebody who could utilize your technology and improve their margins, broaden their product scope, vertical or horizontal movements on their product scale, and they will generally give you the best deal for capital. Now, the other issue you always have is in vendors, there's I call showing your knickers. Okay, you will not get capital, you will not get good people unless you you literally drop your pants and show them your knickers, because the same issues they're going to have, they have to go out and sell to their senior management of why they should do a deal with you. So you're going to have to, does it create a risk that somebody could steal it? Yes, it does. Okay. On the other hand, I've been doing this for a lot of years. I've seen one incident where a big company come out and stole the technology. I'm not saying they won't do it, but I've dealt with the Googles, the Ciscos, with small companies. And as long as you're smart about it and you have a good IP lawyer and you have a good corporate lawyer, okay, you can protect yourself to a certain extent. I'll also tell you that in 1992, I did a transaction in California and patent product, and we had the big boys knock us off, and it was in retail, and they had their philosophy was very simple: you're too small to fight us, so you won't win it. You won't fight us in court. We spent $1 million fighting it. We won every battle, and we lost in the marketplace, and the company went under. Okay. So sometimes it's better just to get your technology, get it out there, become the 800-pound gorilla, okay, and then you're in the driver's seat. What we do a lot of is, if you got a good technology and it could be stolen or copied fairly easily, then we suggest an 800-pound partner, okay? And you approach that very delicately, but now, because everybody else in that same industry is going to try to knock you off, okay? If you're a one-man, two-man, 10-man show, I'm going to tell you right, they'll know the balance in your checkbook, okay? And they'll start a legal battle that you'll choke. You'll choke in 3 months, and the technology will just lay there. They'll come in and take it and say, come get me. But if you team up with an 800-pound gorilla, okay, yes, are you giving up something? I deal in probability. If you want to own 100% of the pie, okay, your chances are very remote in making it to the finish line.
What about selling the IP outright?
Absolutely. We do it all the time. Yeah. And in today's market, believe it or not, with the internet and things, it's easier to get to more people who may have an interest than it was 10 years ago. Because you create, like we create what we call profiles, and then what we do is say, who would be the customer for this technology? And we create a profile, and we match that profile against databases. And databases, and there's 5 or 6 major databases, depending on what type how you're approaching it, corporately, technology-wise, or whatever. And we run what we call cross-pollination to try to come up with a real tight list of who would be interested in that, and then you just start dialing for dollars. Yeah, I mean, communication today is so much more effective than it was before the internet, that you can get through to people. LinkedIn did a study: 47% of people who utilize LinkedIn for promotion and marketing and selling stuff had a response. I can't tell you, 47% is an unbelievable high number.
But getting to those people in those big companies is still a real challenge.
It's an art form.
Yeah.
And by the way, if you don't have, the first thing you try to do is to find what we call an advocate inside the company.
Right.
The bigger the company, the more important you need an advocate. Okay, if you don't have an advocate, I don't care. People sitting in a big desk behind a big chair.
Right.
You walk in and you got something that's revolutionary and everything else. Okay, their job is pretty secure right now. If they make a decision and they make a wrong decision, okay, regardless of how good your technology is, okay, you're talking their job. Okay, they're a lot seven. You need somebody inside the company who says, "Holy hell, this is good for the company." Okay, and we'll push that. It's tough to find that. We're lucky we have that in several big companies, and even like in Cisco, I sit on a board with a senior VP in charge of innovation. And even if I go to him on something he doesn't know inside his company, he's my advocate, so he finds out in the company who I should talk to.
And even then, sometimes it doesn't work, because we have a personal example with that. We have the CTO of Standard & Poor's advocating our product publicly, and he couldn't sell it in his own company.
Right. No. All it does is increase the probability, but there's no guarantees. And the other thing that the internet does today, we do a lot in LinkedIn because of the nature of LinkedIn and how it sort of profiles people up. But word of mouth, a network, you can't replace it. I mean, it's a very valuable tool.
I have a question.
Yes.
So you said in the beginning you could have a great technology, but if the market isn't really adopting it, then you're kind of out of luck for a while anyways. But especially with technology, I know we talked about market research, but shouldn't you be sort of ahead of the curve of where the market is if you want to develop your technology and get it out there in time for that? How do you know?
I mean, it's a two-edged sword, because if you're too far ahead of the curve, you can't get people interested in the technology. We have a transaction right now that we're looking at. We haven't taken them on as a client yet, and they got a technology that's ahead of the curve. What we're trying to ascertain right now, how far ahead of it, the curve, because the market, the financing market, responds to the emotion of the day, and like right now are the robotics. Robotics is so hot. Google's made 8 acquisitions in the last year. Amazon, Apple, everybody's buying robotic technologies. Okay, we happen to have a robotic company, so we're hitting it hard and fast.
And drones.
Yeah, and actually drones are part of the robotic classification because they fly.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But in essence, if you're probably more than a year ahead of the curve, it's tough to finance also. Now, but there are other avenues. If the emotional market, the capital market as we call it, is not looking at your space right now, that's when you have to go to strategic partners, because they understand what you're. Now, you may end up not doing as great a deal, because if the capital market is saying great product, great technology, great industry, that helps the pricing when you're talking to a strategic partner. If the market's not saying that, then you better have some competition as a strategic partner. But right now, there's everybody, capital markets goes through cycle, and right now, selling your technology, I mean, everybody's in the deal business right now, and out to create innovation, including the states. I mean, the state of Colorado, you may or may not know, has huge endeavors right now to try to support people like you. Okay.
Let's go.
Yeah. Very bureaucratic, but every state, and most people, Silicon Valley, which is 2 hours to our west out here, is one area. Believe it or not, New York City has more startups than Silicon Valley now.
Colorado's been a little slow.
Yeah, and Colorado's going to be big in medical. Okay, medical with the new Fitzsimmons site over there and stuff. But the state, they are trying to get some programs going. I'm meeting with the head of the economic development here in early June, and they don't understand. They read a book and they think they know entrepreneurism. Okay, and they don't have a clue, but they have an attitude of trying. That's it.
When you're talking about strategic partners, is that a financing, or is that a manufacturing partner, or is that a customer?
Generally, it could be all three. For instance, in your business, there's a number of people who make related parts to the wind industry that you may want to team up with them versus going to somebody who actually will compete with you. And then if in your industry, I don't know how many primary manufacturers there are. I know that the Danish company, there's a German company, Siemens, and all the, but if you get 10 players in your company, then you're better off to almost, I call it an auction process, okay? But once again, when you go to that and you go to those big boys, you need scientific papers. You need somebody bless this thing big time. But you can generate a lot of activity if you can demonstrate that you have it and it works and people will pay for it, or I can save you money if you buy my technology or if you do a deal with me.
So here in the strategic partnership, you're gonna share, say, R&D costs, share revenues.
Yes, there's no fixed rules. For instance, from a strategic partner software, take this little software company in the East Coast we were talking about. Cisco was willing to come in, assign a couple of techs to fully understand the technology, okay, coordinate their sales. In other words, these guys had they were going to get a check every month, okay? They didn't want a check every month. They wanted to be the biggest, they wanted to be Bill Gates, okay? And it won't work. Because if your strategic partner is big, once again, they're not going to do a deal with you that if something happens to you, they're hurting because they can't afford to risk their client base. Okay, so no matter how good your technology is, okay, dealing with the big boys has good points and bad points. Okay, that's what we always find out from our clients. Do you want to build a company? Or you want to make money? You want to make money? I'm your man. If you want to build a company, tougher to do. If you let me build the company, and we generally we're in charge for 6 to 12 months, and we rotate out because we replace ourselves with industry people. We get you financed. We bring in an industry CEO, let them bring him or her build their management team, and then we're on to the next project. But the probability of success without addressing some of the issues I've talked about today, and I know you've heard some of these from various people here, they are the marketplace. They are the reality of the marketplace. And doesn't matter whether they're right, wrong, or what you think about it, it's what you have to deal with.
So you had talked about validating the market a little bit earlier with
Mhm.
surveys, and I think that's a great idea, but my understanding is that, getting out and having personal testimonials are worth 100 surveys.
Yes.
Is that generally true, or?
Well, surveys to more so not to prove the commerciality of it, to find out if your perception of what your product should do and the market's perception is the same. Because you'll sit there and you're cranking away at your technology, your product, and you'll think you'll know the market. I can guarantee you that if you're really good, you probably have only a third of the different changes and modifications you have to add in order to really meet the market need. Survey only helps you find out what the real market is saying.
That's like the lean startup sort of mentality.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Fail fast and succeed faster.
Right. And in that process, once again, and everything you do, you paper it up, okay? Because every little thing you do when you go to get financing adds credibility, okay? And the market today, when they look at entrepreneurs and inventors, they're not expecting to see GE or General Motors, okay? They know the issues you've been through, okay? And the more you can show them that you know the business process, or you're not that you're doing it, but you recognize the importance of it by keeping track of your surveys, by doing those type of things, white papers, okay? Have another third party look at your technology and write up a report. The crazy scientist, when we got involved with that technology, he was so eccentric, I couldn't put him in front of people, okay? But now we know why, but so we went out, we hired Penn State to do, Penn State has a material science division that they study materials and interactions and everything. And so we hired them and got a report from them. So now I'm walking in with a Penn State report instead of some crazy scientist who I can't even let you talk to. Okay. So there are things that you can do, and a lot of the stuff just comes from experience and common sense. There is no magic formula, and some of the things I've talked about today, in some cases probably would not be necessary, but in most cases to increase your probability of crossing that finish line. Okay, and just keep in mind, I can't tell you enough that of all the things I talked about today, in making it big, the things you have to put together, your technology is the least important. If you address all those other things, Katie bar the door.
I'm just curious, in that anecdote where you hired an academic pursuit to vet the technology, is that your nickel? I mean, are you doing that on risk, or?
Well, we have it was on my nickel. Okay, we operate through what we call a deferred fee,
I see.
and we don't get paid until generally we come in and we do what we call a bridge round. Bridge round is generally $500,000 to $1 million, get you off your feet, okay, get you out there moving, get you a customer, get activity going. We're talking to CEOs at that point, okay, and then we do an A round. An A round can be anywhere from $2 million to $20 million, and that's to really make you a business. And most good CEOs, for instance, and I'll use the robotic company, I have 2 CEO candidates right now. The moment I get past this bridge and I get a minimum of a $2 million commitment from a financing source, then my CEOs they want to join the company. Because they're not risk takers like we are. So we defer that, we'll get paid back. Now, if the deal doesn't go, we eat that, okay? That's why we're very, very careful on who we select as clients.
After you exit, do you maintain an equity position in the company
Oh, yeah,
that you exit?
yeah. We break even on our cash flow, even from our cash fee, but we're interested in equity. And literally, we have a criteria we go through that we're very selective. We do, right now, 2 projects a year. We're now scaling up to do 4 a year because of the new rules. And so I'll be up to 10 people here probably by the end of the year.
How has the new rule changed the way you're operating? When you
Okay.
say looking at 2 more.
The internet.
Tell me a little more about it.
The internet, okay? The actual rule is called 506C. 506 is the provision under the federal law of raising capital from accredited investors only. In the past, you could only talk to friends and family, okay? And I don't know how many friends and family you have, but if you're going to raise several $1 million, you better have a big family. The government's now passed a new rule that says, that was 506B, now 506C says, you can go out and talk to anybody and do a general solicitation. internet, whatever the mechanism is, okay? You can only take money from accredited investors, because you talk to everybody. So you will start seeing radio, TV. Now that passed September 21st of last year. And what happens in the real world is the SEC, everybody's waiting to see what the SEC does and sort of who they go after to sort of set the informal. In the SEC government area, there's the formal rules, and then there's the informal rules of what the SEC likes or dislikes, okay? And they can literally prevent things from happening just by disliking it, even though the law says you can do it, okay? So right now, everybody's sort of waiting for the game rules to really pilfer down to see how you do it. But now, every day or almost every week, there's a new platform that's available on the internet. And AngelList, for instance, is the premier platform. And AngelList has VCs, institutions, and angel investors that are members of that platform. And then people put their deal on that platform. And then there's a communication back and forth if somebody has an interest in your deal. One of the rules we have, financings are not purchased, they are sold. And what that means is you gotta be on the phone or the internet banging away, find out from people who have an interest in your deal and going for the close and educating them, getting them up to speed. They're not just gonna look at this and say, oh my God, this is great, who do I write the check to? Does not happen. Now, these platforms, we feel are going to be dramatically improve the raising of capital for a number of deals, because your audience is millions and millions and millions of people worldwide. Now, there's one more provision coming down the pike. By the end of the year, the SEC is supposed to set out the game rules on what you hear is called crowdfunding. Crowdfunding is you could sell up to $1 million of securities to unaccredited investors. And the SEC hates this rule with a passion.
But it's within very particular limits, right?
Well, based upon income, there's all kind of rules. The general consensus among the capital market is that the cost of compliance with the rules is going to be prohibitive. In other words, you may end up spending $300,000 on complying in order to get the $1 million. Okay, so and it sort of felt that that's the SEC's actual goal. Okay, because it will open up. You know, we have in the capital markets we call widows and orphans that are people not very sophisticated, and you got a lot of bad people out there that will take advantage. And you know, we all know that I could have a website here that makes me look like Chase Manhattan Bank, and I could be a sham deal from the word go. So as an internet being a new vehicle, it's both good and bad. And I can guarantee you probably in 7 to 10 years, there'll be a huge scandal. The government will step in, change the rules, and they'll kill, financing for entrepreneurs and inventions for a while like they've done in the past. But we think we got one hell of a market for the next 5 years. We do.
I'm sorry, that was $1 million stock, or was that $1 million cash?
$1 million, you could sell $1 million worth of stock or bonds. You can raise capital using a security vehicle. The general security vehicles are common stock, preferred stock, bonds, or notes, and then there's different classifications within those. But now the Kickstarter and a couple of the other ones, you're selling product, so you don't have to comply with the security rules. But we talk to Kickstarter probably once a month. Your product has to be pretty damn unique to meet their chick list right now.
And there's a whole run-up to your Kickstarter campaign that you got to do. You got to do social marketing. You got to get the word out before you start your Kickstarter campaign.
It's 50 to 100 grand in services to have a good Kickstarter campaign. And the stories you hear from the original deals, they were all great. They're very nice and emotional. But now they got themselves a business, and they're making sure that every deal they put on there has a high probability of success.
Now, a lot of them were pretty iffy.
Yeah.
Really iffy.
Yeah.
And they got money. I mean, who knows where that money went, but
The wristwatch, the $7 million in wristwatch, I thought was
Apple Watch,
great.
yeah.
didn't make any sense at all to
No.
me.
Yeah, but now everybody's doing a watch, smart watch. So that kind of drove the.
Yeah, and then everyone's going, is there even really a market for those
Right,
things?
like, who needs it really?
Apparently there is. 'Cause
So how did you get into this business? Or did you
Dick
just?
Tracy.
I've been in financing for 35 years. My firm when I had the investment banking firm, I was very fortunate. I had 2 clients. They both were Danish families, and they had over $500 million invested in the U.S. So I watched their investments, and I'd have to go out and interview management, do due diligence, and I learned the process of how you build a business. And so when I sold the firm, they told me in '06 they were going to get out of the U.S. equity markets. So that's when I sold my firm, and I've always loved being half entrepreneur myself. I love building things. So it was a natural inclination, and we went through peaks and valleys. But in town here, if you've watched the paper over the last couple of years, there's a deal you see in the news every once in a while called Serascan. It's a brain scanning technology. That was our first transaction back in '07, and it's been a huge success.
Cool.
And then we've had some, VoIP deals. We've had some we pick very high scalable, our attitude is if we bring the business side to the technology side, we got a good chance for a base hit or a home run.
Do you have a technical background, or?
No, but I have technical people around me. I'm half visionary, and then I'm the driver. I mean, when we come out with our assessment plan, which is everything we have to do, and I don't care if it's creating the minutes to do the financing, okay? We drive that plan like there's no tomorrow. And think of it the way I'm an old military guy, and if you think of special ops, I'm not out to run the whole war. I got a very specific mission, and we get on that puppy and we go. And finding customers, and we start talking right away to all of our financing networks, because right now there's 40 funds out there right now that'll finance deals from 500 to 3 million that are pretty active in the marketplace. You got a number of angel groups. Angel groups are a mechanism. The problem with angel groups, and this is slowly changing, but very slowly, is when you meet with an angel group and you present your idea, they'll nod their head, they like it, but there's no leadership on the other side. There's nobody banging the phone trying to get the damn deal closed. If you don't have that, financings are sold, they're not purchased. So the guys at the meeting, let me write a check to you, doesn't happen. Now, there's a couple, in fact, we're introducing you to one here in a couple weeks. Angel Capital Group,
Yes.
Yeah.
okay?
It's part of the RBC.
No, Frank Hofmeister is the local chapter president. They have a process that every city, they have a group of angels and they have a local chapter president, and it's his job. He sets up the presentation. We're on tour next week to 3 of their cities, and the local chapter president, they set up the meeting just like you guys do this meeting. We walk in, and then they do the leadership when we leave. And they'll say, okay, are you guys interested? They do a term sheet. There's just leadership on that side of the fence. Now, a lot of angel groups are waking up and saying, how come we're missing out on these? Because the platforms are taking over some of their functions. So the angels are looking at it and say, holy hell, we can do that. Well, you can, but the platforms act as a leadership role. Just like you said in Kickstarter, you got all these rules and regulations. That's a lead process, okay? So I look for more angel groups to adopt a model that says we'll lead the process. But several years ago, we started talking to angel groups, and it was so excitable at first because you got people in the room who all could write checks, and they're all nodding their head on the technology to play, and you walk
They
out,
don't.
and they didn't have a process to take that interest level, box it, and put a closing process together, okay? Most
It's all
frustrating.
individual.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and most time they won't give you the individual's names, okay? And one investor, he may have an interest, but he's not going to lead and call his other buddies. So you need a process to close in the financing world. If you don't have that, great ideas go half a dozen.
So let's take a 5-10 minute break and come back, and if you have more questions. Are you gonna hang around, Gary?
I'll tell you what, I'll hang around. If there's any questions when we first get started, great. Otherwise, I'm going to melt out and go home
Sounds
to
good.
a hot woman waiting for me at home.
I have a question.
Yes.
Well,
Okay. We'll start with your question. We'll leave.
Yep.
just thinking around.
You know where the restroom is at the bottom of the stairs? Straight ahead at the bottom of the stairs is the women's, and